Good afternoon. Now I know that you speak English. Okay. Thank you very much, Maria and Mike, for inviting me here and for doing all this organization. I know how much work this always is, and I'm very delighted by the way they all prepared this and shared their ideas through email with me, so I feel well prepared to share with you some ideas. I came this afternoon by car from my hometown Utrecht, and I was amazed how close it is to get here. It's only 2 hours actually. So if you have never been to Utrecht, please take a chance. This is to make it more attractive. You know. Okay, I will talk about the portfolio and reflection and core reflection, and what is important that if you want to develop a view of the role of reflection and portfolio in teacher education, I think you can't do that without having a view of learning to teach and professional development. That should be embedded in that view. And you need a view of reflection. And I'll elaborate on that in my talk, because this is really a problem. If you talk with teacher educators, they all talk about reflection, and if you ask them, what is it and how do you do it? Then suddenly it's not only a problem of student teachers that they don't know, but to be honest, many teacher educators are not so clear about it either. So I'll talk about that. You need a view of what is good teaching and what is a good teacher. There's no other way to make a portfolio if you don't have any background of a view of what a good teacher is anyway. And finally, you need a view of the teacher as a person. What's the connection between the professional and the personal side of teaching? If you don't have a view of that, it's also very difficult to clarify, to make clear to student teachers what they need to reflect on in their portfolios. So what I'll do 3 things. I'll give you first some background of our program at Utrecht University, where we've worked with reflection and portfolios for many, many years. Actually, the development started 30 years ago, and I was not the only one to do that. It was a whole team of teacher educators who worked on that. I'll talk with you about how to deepen reflection and how the role of the portfolio can really become helpful to student teachers in their reflection and in their professional development. And finally, I will go deeper into the issue of reflection and talk about the latest development in this area, which is called core reflection. You really go to the core of the essence of teaching and the essence of yourself as a teacher. That is called core reflection. So that's what my presentation is about. I'll not only do a presentation, but I'll involve you now and then with some small activities. You might think, oh, it lasts until 6. Yes, but it's not only a talk until 6. So I warn you, and maybe you can find some entrances for your portfolio during my talk in this way. Okay, I'll start with the background of the teacher education program at my home university. It's a 1-year postgraduate program, so a 1 year on top of a master's degree, where students come in, for instance, with a degree in mathematics, and they have a 1-year program to become a teacher. Now, already 30 years ago in Utrecht, we realized that there is one central problem in teacher education. Actually, it has been the central problem in teacher education for more than a century. And that's the problem of how to connect theory and practice. And in many, many institutions worldwide, this is a huge gap. And that's what student teachers often complain about, but also teacher educators complain about. And 30 years ago, we started to find new ways to bridge this gap, and I think we were a little bit successful. At least my book has been translated into 7 other countries, also 7 other languages, also into German, by the way. But I was told that it's no longer available, so that's not very helpful maybe. But the English book is available. It's even translated into Japanese and Korean. You're amazed. Especially in those countries, they struggle a lot with that huge gap between theory and practice, and they find if you can't overcome that, we can't keep up with developments in the Western world. So it's amazing. I've been several times in Japan. Maybe I can tell you more about that, because it's very, very interesting how they deal with reflection there. Traditionally, this was the view of teacher education. And this is still dominant in many places. The idea is we have a lot of knowledge, so we can teach that to the teachers so that they can use it in the classroom. Very simple, very logical, of course. There's only one problem. You know that? It doesn't work. And this is something that many teacher educators don't really know, but there is a large body of research showing that this view of teacher education is insufficient. Many research studies came up already here in Germany. Germany was one of at the frontier of that during the 1970s with the research by Müller-Vorbrot, which became very well known internationally, where he showed that there is something like a practice shock when students who have been prepared in this way go into practice. And well, I was in the United States in 2005. It's a year to remember because I will return to this quite interesting year, 2005, when the American Educational Research Association published this book, Studying Teacher Education, and it gave an overview of the North American research on teacher education of the past century. And there was one conclusion that actually many educators tried to keep away from politicians, but it was the conclusion that there was no evidence that teacher education made any difference. And that was quite a shock then. I was at the conference of the American Education Research Association, and it was really amazing. People were in shock. Interestingly, I've never heard any European teacher educator talk about this. Whereas I thought this will be a shock wave worldwide. Because all that research showed that, first of all, much of the research was invalid, was methodologically very weak, but the research that was quite good showed that the theories presented in teacher education were mainly, overall, not or hardly used by the teachers, the graduates of those programs. That's not a nice message to start my coming to Germany this afternoon, but what does the research say? Not only this book edited by Cochran, Smith and Zeichner, but also a thorough research review by Wydeen, Meyer, Smith and Moon in 1998 already. There's only very limited evidence of impact of teacher education on practice, and beginning teachers struggle when they go into teaching and they don't feel well prepared. Of course, this does not apply to your teacher education program, but it may create a little bit of uneasiness if you think about this. I just learned a German word, Murmelrunde, and we'll now get a Murmelrunde. So please take 3 minutes. Maybe your program is completely different from this, but if you have that traditional approach where you teach theories to student teachers, mainly in the form of lectures, why doesn't that work? Please try to find 3 reasons, in pairs or with 3 people. Just make some small groups for 3 minutes. Okay. Now, this creates something, huh? Now, the first thought that you may have in your small group is, well, probably in North America they do it in the wrong way. They should introduce more examples in their lectures and more videos, etc., etc. But, well, there's one person I admire quite a lot, Robinson, who says, it's not just a matter of doing it better. There is a fundamental problem here. It's not a question of a better, more sophisticated pedagogy or so. Basically, these are the reasons, the causes that you find in the literature. First and most importantly, as soon as teachers go into the schools, they see in their colleagues that they don't use those theories. And if they try to implement something new, even the pupils give them the message, don't do that. And that's the socialization process, which is the main cause of losing everything they've learned. Secondly, teaching is complex. You can't say, oh, use this theory and then everything will be fine. It's not that simple. It's complex. Thirdly, oh, that was to remind me of something. Teachers, when they are educated, they already have an idea of teaching, of learning. And they have their preconceptions, and they are very hard to change. Especially because they have formed those notions for many, many, many years when they were a student, a pupil themselves. And then, do teachers need theory? I'll go deeper into that later, but for this moment, if you have to react on the spot, which is a major part of teaching, you have to react on what happens. Is it really theory? And I sometimes say theory with the big T, the theory, the academic research. Is that really helpful? Or do you need something else? More practical things, more practical knowledge that really helps you understand what's going on and what to do, which is sometimes called theory with a small t. Or the division between formal and practical knowledge. And then finally, we think if people have the right thing in their heads, they will do the right thing. But human behavior isn't that simple. Human behavior is not based on thinking alone. We know that most of human behavior is actually not based on thinking, but on feelings, on emotions, on what people want, what they need on the spot. For instance, if you are on time pressure as a teacher and someone asks a question, you try to go quickly around it because you want to save time. It's not that you think, oh, the theory says that I now have to ask a question to the student to know his preconception so that then I can attune to that. It's not that simple. And that brought us in Utrecht to a complete change. We call it the realistic approach. And this is kind of an image of it, where you start from actual experiences in the classroom or actual experiences outside the classroom, but with teaching. For instance, teaching your peers as student teachers, or teaching a pupil for 1 hour a week. And use that as the basis of reflection and development of your insights. And use that again in practice. And then you see that spiral there, which is the spiral of reflection. But student teachers have to learn that. That's what we found. You can't say to student teachers, now reflect and make a portfolio. How do you do that? That's something they have to learn. And that's what I will talk about, how we do that at Utrecht. Because this is the shift we made, and we've learned a lot of things from a lot of our failures during these 30 years. But one thing we succeeded in was really connecting theory and practice. We've done a lot of research on our program, that's also in my book, and it shows that our student teachers do really use what they've learned in their programs. And that they feel there was a seamless connection between theory and practice, which is quite revolutionary if you compare it with all that research showing the opposite. This is the basic idea. Make the program follow the learning and not vice versa. So what you can see in our program, and you can see it in many programs worldwide nowadays, is a shift from knowledge transfer from experts towards self-directed learning in student teachers, and also a shift from individual learning to co-creation in groups. So there's much more group learning going on nowadays, and there's much more reflection going on. And you can ask yourself for a moment now, maybe, where am I generally as a teacher-educator? In the upper right corner, you are transferring your knowledge, but you give some small group exercises. In the left upper corner, you don't even do that. You just transfer your knowledge in lectures or whatever. If you go to the lower parts of this picture, then you see that the focus on self-directed learning and on reflection is important. And I think this fits into the view of portfolios. But my view is you can't expect student teachers during their practicum to reflect and to make a portfolio if you didn't prepare that during the program. So if you have a traditional program where you lecture all the time and then ask students, and now reflect, it doesn't work. So what we do in our program is we work all the time on the basis of real situations encountered during teaching experiences. Our very first week starts with having the student teachers give a 5-minute lesson to each other. Could be about their hobbies or whatever. And we take that as an opportunity for reflection and also peer reflection, so that they get used to the idea of reflection. And always based on what is their concern, not the concern of the teacher-educator. This is quite revolutionary. We all think we know what's best for them to learn, but they know what they struggle with. And can we help them with their struggle? So that leads to reflection by and interaction amongst the student teachers. And then the role of the teacher-educator becomes one of guided reinvention. The teacher-educator helps the student teachers to almost reinvent important notions, important ideas. And there is an emphasis, at least at the beginning of our program, not on the academic theory, but on notions, theoretical elements that they feel, oh, this is helpful, this is an insight. Now I know how I can deal with my concern. And only at the end of our program, we present the more formal academic theory as a background, because we think every professional has to have some knowledge of those formal theories. But all the research shows that that's not helpful for their practice. It's helpful for their being a professional and now having professional knowledge about teaching. Reflection is central in our program, and a research study by Van Woerkom, a Dutch researcher, showed she looked at 7 completely different professions before, for instance, nursing and in business and in education. And she tried to identify what colleagues called a strong professional. And then she tried to probe into the question, what makes the difference in this professional? And she found that the crucial difference that makes professionals into a good professional, a strong professional, is that they reflect systematically, not only on what goes wrong, but also on what goes well and why it went well. They take time for reflection. And so it's maybe understandable that since the 1980s, it has become a key issue in many educational programs, and especially in teacher education worldwide, and also in research. But what is it? And how do you do that, reflection? Well, many publications refer to the groundwork that has been done in 1933 by John Dewey. But well, take some time to study this and then ask yourself, do I now know how to do it? It is not really helpful. It's a great definition, but it's not very practical. This is the difference between theory with big T and with small t. How do you do that? Well, my definition is still quite, well, abstract, but at least it brings it closer to teachers, I think. It's the process of trying to structure an experience or a problem with the aim to get a better understanding and to improve your practice. That's your goal. Still, how do you do that? What we use is a model which is called the elect model because of the first letters of the 5 phases. Oh, it's gone. The circle is gone. Let me see if I get it somewhere else. It comes back, I think. No, strange. The reflection is gone in me. It's very sad because it's the most important. Oh, you've got it on your paper probably. It's the most important slide of my presentation, so maybe you look it up. It's a model with 5 phases. No, you're too far, I think. Yeah. Oh no, that's no. Is this? Oh, that's not all here too. Okay. A good teacher always knows a solution. So, there are 5 phases in this model, where 5 phases actually the start of a new cycle. And this phase is called action, the first letter of the elect model. The teacher does something, and then the teacher looks back on what he did and how it went, with the idea to become aware of what was essential in that experience, in that action. Maybe you recognize that a lot of teachers skip this. For instance, they have an experience, they have a discipline problem in the classroom, they look back, they say, well, it was quite messy, it was a little bit of a discipline problem. Next time, I'm going to be more strict. Create alternative solution. Without analyzing, how come that there was a discipline problem? Is it in your paper, this model? No, that's the core reflection model. That's the next step. No, this is not in your handout. So you have to see it here. No, this is not the core reflection model. No, the text is different too from here. I'll get to that later. That's the deepening of this model. So the idea is that student teach. This is making it very practical. This is theory with a small t about reflection. How do you do that? Well, these are actually the steps you go through if you really want to learn from your experience. You have to look back. You have to become aware of what was essential. You have to create an alternative solution if there was a problem. Or you can also start with a positive experience and ask yourself, looking back, what made this into a success? And how can I use this more often? Next time. So this is finally, you try it out for the next time and then you start a new cycle. And the basic questions for each of these 3 phases we can still see here. It starts with the question, what happened? And then getting to the essence, there the question is, what was important here? And then the 4th phase is, to what intentions does it lead for the future, for my next steps? So if you see that circle, which is not there, but here, you may realize people differ, and this is very interesting, differ in the degree to which they are used to go through these phases. Some people take a lot of time to reflect here, but they never get to a solution. They never get to, what will I do differently? Some people focus immediately on this. And other student teachers keep looking back without getting the essence. So this is helpful to student teachers to shape their reflection and to overcome habitual ways that are not very effective. Well, this model is now in use in many countries in the world, and of course when you translate it into German, it is no longer the ALEC model, but the 5 steps, that idea is basically very simple, but it appears to be very helpful to student teachers. Suddenly they realize, oh, this is reflection, okay. I still don't like it, but at least it's clear what you expect from me. By the way, one reason why student teachers often don't like to reflect is that they always use, that's a habit of the human mind, to think about situations that were negative and to reflect on. That makes reflection not very interesting and very, very nice. In our program, we stimulate student teachers to at least include positive experience, however small during their classroom, during their classes, to reflect on and to ask themselves, what made a difference? What in me made a difference? Why this was a success? Which makes reflection a lot more attractive to them than always reflecting on negative experiences. Well, this is the way we work in our program, a 1-year program, and we did a lot of research on this program, and one of the main studies was published in 2005, and you may understand the title that we chose for it because of that other publication. We deliberately chose the title, Can Teacher Education Make a Difference? Because the answer in this article was, based on our empirical research, yes, because our teachers do use what they've learned in their program. So that has been a quite influential article, but we encountered some risks when we work with reflection in this way, and I want to share it with you because it's directly important for portfolios, I think. The first risk is, I already mentioned it, that reflection remains a little bit cognitive rational, a rational analysis. And I already said human behavior is not based on rational analysis only. So what is important to realize is this iceberg model. What you see in the doing of student teachers is not only based on thinking and on theories. It's also based on their feelings and on their wanting, on their inspiration, on their ideals or needs. And this is very important for student teachers to start to realize and to reflect on. How did I feel during the lesson? What do I want? But not only they. Also, the pupils in the situation. If they have given a lesson, we ask them to look back in this phase with the aid of these 8, 9 fields. So not only what did I do and what did I think about what I do, but also how did my feelings influence what I did? How did my wanting influence that? And what happened at the other side? Well, after the first lesson our student teachers give, and I don't know how it is in Germany, they have no idea of the right side if it's about the pupils. They have no idea of what the pupils thought, what they felt. Even what they did is sometimes they don't know. So they start to realize, if I want to reflect, how do I get my information? How can I, during a lesson, get a grip on all these questions? Because what we help them understand is that there are all kinds of relations. What you want as a teacher has immediate influence on how the students feel, how the pupils feel. And often there is a discrepancy between what the pupils want and what you want. And how does that interact and how does that influence the other fields? And that makes it very concrete. Suddenly they understand, oh yeah, now I understand what looking back is. That's using these fields. And then it's important, this is something we actually in research discovered only after the last decade, there is a difference between action-oriented reflection and meaning-oriented reflection. And that's immediately related to this diagram, because if you jump quickly to what to do, then you have action-oriented reflection. If you look deeper, what was happening and why did it happen and what is effective, you get what is called meaning-oriented reflection. And 2 thorough research studies have showed that in the long run, action-oriented reflection does not contribute very much to professional development. Only if you look a layer deeper and try to understand what's going on, then you see an effect on long-term professional learning. It's very interesting. Can you understand that? Why, for instance, if I give this lecture and I drive back in my car and I think, what should I do differently next time? Why is that not very effective? What's missing?
There will be a new group, new listeners, different,
new circumstances.
Yes, yeah. Very different situation.
Yeah. So only the question, what should I do differently? Well, it might help that I would reflect on, well, I was a little bit confused that suddenly one of my slides was wrong and I have to improvise on the spot. What happened? There was some confusion in the audience, there was some confusion in me. What was helpful? Well, what was helpful is that I said to myself, and I actually did that, this has happened before, maybe 10 years ago, but I remember that my whole PowerPoint didn't work. And what did I do then? Okay, I took the flip over and suddenly I knew what to do. And so if I drive home and I think, whatever happens, I can always shift the medium that I use. That's a deeper insight than only what should I do. It's a kind of a deeper looking. You can be flexible in the instruments that you use. That's the deeper insight. That can help you in many more situations than only this example. So, this makes this clarifies that in this ALEC model, this phase is maybe the most important phase. Awareness of what was essential in the situation. The second risk that we have encountered over the years is that reflections by student teachers often remain a little bit superficial. You get the idea, yeah, is this all? And this model helps in this respect that you clarify to your student teachers, it's not only just looking back what happened. You want something more. You want something deeper. You want an analysis. You really want to use these 8, 9 fields that I show to look a little bit further. And then the third risk is there is some distance in how they write or how they reflect. You think, well, yeah, it's all okay what they say, but I don't see the person in it. I don't see how it touches this student. Who is this student? What's happening in this student? And that has brought us to the next step, which brings me to core reflection. Because core reflection goes deeper, involves the person. And in our program nowadays, we have realized that it's not only about connecting theory and practice, it's about connecting theory, practice with this person. And that a student teacher should realize that when a student teacher makes a portfolio. It's not analyzing it as if it was someone else's story. It's your story, and I want to see you in it. What did you learn about yourself? And that leads me to the focus on the person. So we go now to the second step in my presentation, the deepening of reflection and the role of the portfolio. Let's make a small personal reflection now. I'd like to ask you to think of a teacher that has touched you in your life. A teacher that was really inspirational for you, where you really learned a lot. Could be in primary education or in secondary or at the university. And try to see someone in front of your eye now. As if you remember that person, you see that person again in front of you. Sometimes people come to me during a break and they say, I couldn't think of any inspirational teacher. If that's your problem, just take one who was better than the rest. Yeah? Yeah, can you see someone from your own history, a teacher that you thought, yes, this was a great teacher? And then ask yourself, if you see that teacher, what was this teacher's strength? Can you give a name to that? Can you give a word to that? Now, it's helpful to me if you can say it in English, but if you only can find a German word, then there will be translation available, so you feel free to do it in German. What comes up to your mind? What makes the difference? What do you see was characteristic for this teacher? Good emotions in you. In me. And what? Of this teacher, there was good emotions, no fear, but good emotions. Yeah. And what does that say about that teacher? Is there something characteristic for that teacher? He has seen the individual of my person. Okay, he saw the individual. Other words?
I had a lot of passion for something.
Passion. No inspirational teachers in your history?
The teacher gave me images and pictures as scenes. He put me into a scene.
He puts you in the seeing. Trust. Two more. I don't understand, sorry. Fairness. Okay, very fair. Fair person, fairness. Yeah, okay, thank you. Final one. Good entertainer. Now, what is interesting is that worldwide, and I don't know how that is in Germany, I think you are on the same track at the moment. Worldwide, there is a tendency to formulate lists of competencies of teachers. And what is so sad is that these kind of things are not on that list. Yeah, you say, yes, but this is really sad. Because this is the essence, you say, of this teacher. And this has to do with the person of the teacher. These are very personal characteristics that not only professional, they use that professionally. But it were very personal qualities. And we're starting to see, and this is really a new development in our field, that this is much more important than we ever realized. My word for this is core qualities. These are personal qualities of a teacher to be used professionally. And I like this quote. Consciously, we teach what we know. Unconsciously, we teach who we are. Now, this has consequences for how we educate teachers. This has consequences for reflection. This has consequences for portfolios. And just to give you, for those of you who may be confused, what are competencies, what are core qualities? Competencies you can split up in sub-competencies. Those things that are here, you can't split them up. Competencies are domain-specific. You can apply them to a certain field, but not in other fields. Whereas core qualities you can use in many situations. That's what makes them so strong, especially things like passion and trust. Competent, you can teach, in teacher education, you can teach competencies to student teachers. They are learnable. But core qualities are already part of you. You are born with it, actually. I always like to show this picture, especially those who are mothers. They immediately see the qualities of this child. What do you see? What qualities does the child have? Personal qualities. So joy. There's already joy in this person. Concentration. It's already there. So the new insight about these core qualities, and that comes from positive psychology, is this is innate. People are born with those qualities. And of course, it makes a difference whether they are stimulated during your upbringing or not. And the British educationalist Tickle says, we have overlooked this for a long time. This is much more important than we ever realized. At the interface of the person and the profession. Now, this concurs with positive psychology, a new development in psychology you may be familiar with. It started around 1999, where Martin Seligman, who became president of the American Psychological Association, said, psychology has gone the wrong way. Something is going wrong here. We have forgotten to focus on strength of people. We are very good in finding all kinds of traumas and deficiencies. We have our handbooks with all those deficiencies and traumas. But we've overlooked one thing. This is a great new development in psychology with a lot of empirical research now on strength of people. And they call it character strength in the United States. And they use the word psychological capital. And I think this has a double meaning. It's very important that student teachers know their own psychological capital, that they know where their strength is as a person, and that they see the psychological capital in pupils. So this has become a strong focus, and it's very interesting. The broaden and build model from this new branch of psychology, it actually says, when people focus on their strength and on their positive experiences, they learn much faster than if you say, oh, you have to learn this, and this is not okay yet, etc., etc. There's even a 3-to-1 rule, which you could have some discussion about. But the basic idea is people need more than 3 times as much the feeling of, yes, I can do this, than the feeling of a negative feeling of failure. Otherwise, learning stops. By the way, in marriages, they found that if partners give each other less than 3 times as much positive feedback as negative, it's a good predictor of divorce in 3 years. So something to remind. Well, we call that the inner potential. And I like the metaphor of a diamond, the diamond within, because a diamond has all these facets. People have many core qualities in themselves. And that's what Csikszentmihalyi calls flows. It creates flow. It creates the feeling of, yes, I can do this, yes. And the environment, for instance, the pupils, they feel it. Now, this picture is a little bit simple. A more complicated picture is now basic to the view of core reflection. And I'll explain this in a moment, because this is the basis of our new view of reflection, and this is spreading throughout the world incredibly rapidly at the moment, because all over the world, Japan or Korea or the United States or whatever country in Europe, everybody feels, oh, there's something in this. Because we ask student teachers to reflect and to use that ALAC model, but what can they reflect on? Is there any help to tell them, well, these are layers you can go through in your reflection? I called it the model of levels in reflection, and then there was a joke in my university, they called it Fred's onion. And then I decided to call it the onion model, and that's how it's now known all over the world. When a student teacher reflects, a student teacher can reflect on, well, what did I encounter, the pupils, and what did they do, etc., etc., and what did I do? And here comes in that word competencies. Yes, it is of course very important, competent. Do I have the competencies? Do I use my competencies in what I do? What is often overlooked is that if they don't do that, there's often a problem at the deeper layer, not at they should exercise more, what many teacher educators often think, but there's probably an obstacle a layer deeper. For instance, they don't believe it's helpful to them in that situation, or even at a deeper layer, it doesn't fit in how they look at themselves and who they are, what is nowadays called professional identity. So there could be a discrepancy between these layers, and then progress stops. And even a deeper layer that is coming up in the literature worldwide now is, what is your mission? What is your ideal? What drives you into teaching? And is that concurrent with how you view yourself? Is it concurrent with what you believe about situations you encounter and how you act upon that? Is there alignment in these layers? And is everything connected with who you are, your qualities? Now, this is very helpful for portfolios, actually, as a guidance for student teachers. Because my view is that good teaching and a good teacher is not someone who has only the right competencies. It's only one layer. It's also not someone who has the good core qualities. It's the connection between the layers that makes the difference. If these layers are in line with each other, if they are in harmony with each other, then you feel that the teacher has strength. Then you feel that flow. And if a teacher encounters a problem, it's very interesting to ask them, where is the friction in these layers? Because if a student teacher encounters a problem, there's always a friction somewhere in these layers. For instance, in that example that I gave before of the teacher who has discipline problems, this person had a belief, oh, I should be more strict. But there was a discrepancy between being more strict and her deeper mission of being a nice, good friend to the pupils. There was a tension there. How to deal with that? And these are very interesting things. So what we do in our portfolios, and that's common in all over the Netherlands at the moment, is we ask in a portfolio to give a concrete example of a situation, an environment, and how the student teacher behaved in that situation. For instance, the student teacher can show that with a video or describe it, and then ask yourself these other questions. What competencies did I use there? How are they grounded in my beliefs about that situation? How are they grounded in what I believe about myself? And what's the relation with my ideals, my mission? And do my core qualities really give a color to every other layer here? So that's the model of levels in reflection. And if student teachers reflect on those deeper levels, then we talk about core reflection. And that's where the person and the profession connect. The deeper you go into that onion, the more it's a personal reflection. It's about who you are as a person. The outer layers are the more professional layers. But only if they are connected, if there's harmony between that, then there's strength. So, that does solve that third risk. You get more connection with the person. And finally, there's one final problem, a big problem in many, many places, and I heard it mentioned. As far as I could understand German, I understand the word attitude and the word resistance against reflection, and how do you overcome that? Well, one of the sad things is that reflection is always so heavy and not joyful. And in a moment I will give you an example of how reflection can go very, very deep, be very, very joyful, and how it can be done in 3 minutes. And our student teachers, if they have that experience, they never say, oh, I don't like reflection. It's one big joy to reflect in that way. And I'll give you a small example of how you can do that, because I feel it's so sad that worldwide the literature is full about this resistance to reflection. Whereas I think when you really connect with who you are, when you really connect with what you bring into the world, it's a joyful experience. So, let me see how I'm in the time. Yeah. I think it's going well. Yeah. Let's do that exercise in 3 minutes. But it needs some preparation. So, this is interesting for your own portfolio now. I'd like to ask you to reflect on a situation that you recently encountered in your work that you found inspirational, that you find joyful, where you found some flow. Wow. Try to think of one concrete example. You need it for the next exercise, so please be with me and really think of an example of a nice, an inspirational flow experience of the last couple of weeks. If you can find any. And if that's a problem, you take a situation that's better than normal. I'm prepared for everything now. And if you think, yeah, my work is always inspirational and joyful, Fred, so what should I take? Well, take just one example, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to ask you, and this is also unconventional, I'm going to ask you to reflect with the right side of your brain. I'm going to ask you to see an image. I'll bring you into the image. See it in front of you, that situation, as if you are there again now. Some people like to close their eyes. Do it in your own way, with your eyes open or closed, but make a connection with that concrete situation, as if you are there again now. And see what you see. Be aware of what you see. Be aware of what you hear. Maybe you hear voices talking, perhaps your own voice. And notice the tone of voice. How does that feel? And now I have 3 questions that concur with what I presented before. What did you think at that moment? Be aware of your thoughts. Especially the most important thought at that moment. What was your main thought? Could be very simple, like, yes, or could be the thought of, oh, finally, or whatever. And then go to your feeling. How do you feel at that moment? Maybe you can feel it in your body even. How does that feel, that moment? Can I hear some feeling words? How do you feel? Happy. Okay. How do you feel? Do you feel something? Warm. Okay, good. And then finally, check for yourself if I'm right, if I'm correct. My hypothesis is that in this situation you encountered something of the deepest layer in yourself. Something of your passion, something of your ideal, what you want to go for. Something was realized here that's important to you, that has a value, that is a deep ideal of yours. You can even write it down in your portfolio. Because then you go deep into that onion. You ask yourself, from that inspirational situation, what does this tell about my mission? What does it tell me about what my drive is? And then it would be interesting to go even deeper and look at your core qualities. And we're going to do that in that exercise. We do that 3-minute exercise now. And my experience is that it is helpful if I give a small demonstration so that you know what to do. Because sometimes people think, only 3 minutes? How do you do this? Well, it's shown there how you do it, but for many people it's not easy. So maybe a short demonstration could help. I need a drink first. Is there a volunteer who wants to do this with me? here in front of the audience, then yeah, please come. And now this is what we heard before. I've got a little timer here with the chimes. So I've put it on 3 minutes. So after 3 minutes, we have to be ready. I'll give you your own mic. What's your name?
Frank.
Frank. Okay, Frank. I'll start my timer here. Okay, Frank. Great that you are here.
Yes.
By the way, there's already a core quality there, eh?
Yes.
In you.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Right. So, what quality do you see here in yourself?
In myself, I'm always interested to learn and improve.
The interest to learn and improve, which is a core quality already. So, actually, I've already done that. But okay, we'll now go deeper into. We'll go deeper in your situation. Can you tell me in a few words, a few sentences, because we have only 3 minutes, can you tell me the essence of your inspirational situation?
Do I need to tell the situation before or just the essence?
Just the essence.
The essence was satisfaction.
Yeah, that's too much of the essence. Just a few sentences. How you became satisfied? What was the essence of how you became satisfied?
I had a student and I tried to instigate learning into the student, and I got a feedback from the student which led me to direct, yes, it worked. It
worked. Okay, what did you think?
I thought my role in it is rather small.
Okay.
It was a student who learned.
It was a student who learned?
Yes.
How did you feel about this?
It is a bit of a feeling of helplessness, because you might overestimate as a teacher how much you can actually do. It's not the teacher who learns, it's the student in this case who learns.
Still, it was inspirational to you.
And so it's a bit of luck. Well, maybe not just luck, but you can't overestimate the role of the student in their own learning.
But it
and
is...
I noticed that.
Okay. But it's connected to what you want.
Yes.
What do you want?
I want to further learning in my students.
Right. And that happened.
It happens.
So at least
sometimes.
you create the circumstances that could happen.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So...
And that was satisfying.
Okay, so we've got your ideal. One of your ideals is to further stimulate learning in student teachers.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which aligns with your own quality of wanting to learn and improve and be open to learning, eh?
I hope so, but as I said, I'm not quite sure how much I actually influenced it and how much is done by other factors than me, the student, the circumstances, and so on.
Yeah, but Frank, aren't you overlooking one important thing then?
Maybe.
You gave the room, the space to do to create this.
That's true.
That must have something to do with the quality of yours, giving space to people.
Thank you.
Am I right or not?
Yes, with reflection, yes, I think you are right, because otherwise it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Yes.
So at least
yes,
we have two core qualities of yours. Thank you for this is right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Now, 3 minutes, which brought us to the inner part of the onion, to his ideals and his core qualities, in 3 minutes. Is this something you don't like? Or do you like this conversation? This is what students call quite fun, yeah. So you're going to experience that fun now, but before you do that, is it clear what I did? So that you can use some ideas. What did you notice? This is the technique of promoting core reflection. What did you notice?
Concentrate on the values and on the positive effects in the person. Right. Yes.
What else did you notice? Otherwise you can't do it if you didn't notice it. Then it will not succeed in 3 minutes.
you were guiding with your questions and to what direction he was given, and sometimes when he was getting a little negative, you were bringing him back to the positive part of the experience.
So I was always focused on the positive, and I asked some very simple questions, but basic to this kind of reflection. A question about what he thought, what he felt, and what he wanted. And without that, you don't get into depth. People normally, especially in our culture, especially at universities, have a tendency to only think about this. And through the feeling, connection with feeling, and wanting, that brought us to that I could at least see your strength of giving space. So this is very important, to ask these questions. What else did you notice? Did I hurry in these 3 minutes? There's a surgeon in New York who teaches novice surgeons making, how do you call that in English? Heart operations, you know. And he said, you have only 40 minutes to cut this part of the body and to connect it with a machine. So take it easy. Because if you go into a hurry in these 3 minutes, it doesn't work. It needs some relaxation. Although I did interrupt you 2 times, where I thought, well, this is going another way than to the essence of thinking, feeling, and wanting, and to this essence, because your assignment is to go to core qualities and ideals. That should be your clear focus. Make pairs. I'll ring the bell after 2 minutes. It's very sad for your partner if he or she didn't hear any core qualities in these 3 minutes. So that's your first assignment. And after 3 minutes you change roles, and that will be almost the end of my presentation. Very hard to get the audience back after such an exercise. You don't like reflection, eh? No, no, no. So what you did in 3 minutes was, with that other person, you went really deep into the onion, you went to the level of mission, you went to the core quality, so you went into core reflection. And it connects you as a person with your professional situation. And actually in Dutch teacher education, we don't accept portfolios where that connection is not being made by student teachers, because we think it's crucial for teaching. But I don't have the time to talk with you about how do you do that in negative situations, because they do encounter problems. And I already said then there's always a friction somewhere in one of these layers. And that's also part of core reflection. So we changed our ALEC model over the years into this model of core reflection, where it again starts with a concrete situation, and it starts with reflection, but now you reflect like you just did on your ideal and on a core quality. Also in a negative situation, what was your ideal? And how is that connected to a quality of yours? Because ideals and qualities are always connected. And what was your obstacle there? So if Frank had a negative situation, I could ask him, what was your obstacle? You have these beautiful core qualities of giving space to people and promoting learning, and you are a learning person yourself. In that negative situation, what happened with these beautiful qualities? What was the obstacle here? And then you get into deep reflection on what hampers, what limits your professional development. Well, actually that's a 2-day workshop for teacher educators to get used to that kind of guidance into reflection. But you don't have to be a therapist for that. It is not therapy what you're doing. You're not going deep into personal history of students. You go into the here and now of professional situations, and you look into the question of how do you limit yourself to be that great person with all those qualities that you have. That's core reflection. It's time to conclude. What I did in this presentation, with your help, I started with this slide saying you can't have a view of the role of profession without having a view of learning to teach and professional development, without having a clear view of reflection. And student teachers need that clear view. They need to understand what reflection is. You need a view of good teaching and good teachers. And my view is a good teacher is someone where these layers are in line with each other. And that is also a view of the teacher as a person, because the teacher as a person makes the difference. It's the inside of the onion that goes to the outside that makes the difference in good teaching. We started with the gap between theory and practice. You can't lecture about this. I did, because actually, if you look at how we organize our conferences, we still believe in that theory into practice approach. So when I was invited here, my first reaction was, yeah, I can give a presentation, but I want to include some activities, otherwise it has no use in my view. And that's part of the realistic approach, that you have experience that you can reflect on. That's basic, and you have to prepare students during your program, in my view, before you ask them to make portfolios. You have to prepare them for reflection. You have to teach them what reflection is and how they can do it and how joyful it can be. Yeah, the ALEC model, you have seen it. There's something with the laptop, I don't know. It can't have that diagram. We went into 4 risks, and I gave you some solutions for these risks. One of the important background notions of everything I presented to you was that idea that you not only make reflection into a cognitive activity, it's about feelings, it's about what you want, about your ideals. And that's what you just experienced. Professional development is multi-layered. And that multi-layeredness makes it interesting, also for student teachers, that they suddenly see the connection between who they are and why they struggle with certain competencies, because they don't seem to fit with them. And then you can talk about that with them, how they can proceed on that situation. The teacher as a person is the core by which education itself takes place. It's not only about connecting practice and theory, but reflection is about theory, practice, and the connection with the person. That's what I try to express during my presentation. That most recent development towards core reflection, it's, if you are interested in that, there are more recent books, because that book on theory and practice is a 2001 book. And in 2013 and 2014, my new books came out, Teaching and Learning from Within and Practicing Core Reflection, which are also being translated at this moment in other languages. And that's all about this deepening of reflection with the onion model and with core reflection. If you are interested, I've got a website where you can click on my English website, where you can find articles and examples and workshops on all this, www.korthagen.nl. And so if you are interested, go to the website after this beautiful conference and we will meet there. Thank you very much.